The warning klaxons screamed across Nexus Station like dying beasts. Commander Zara Vex pressed her palm against the viewport, watching Earth's delegation ship approach through the void. The vessel looked primitive, angular steel and ceramic, composites instead of the flowing biometal curves of Galactic Coalition craft. "They call that a warship?" sneered Captain Thorne, his crystalline Cytherian features catching the station's amber lighting. "It looks like something built by children playing with scrap metal." Admiral Kess, a towering Vorthak with 4 arms and skin like polished obsidian, studied the tactical displays. "Their weapons signatures are unusual. Energy outputs are lower than expected, but there's something else. The ship's power distribution patterns don't match any known configuration. The human vessel." Defiance docked with barely a vibration. Through the observation deck, they watched the airlock cycle open. What emerged made several Coalition officers step back involuntarily. The humans looked ordinary enough, bipedal, carbon-based, roughly similar to a dozen other species. But something in their bearing, the way they moved with controlled economy, set alarm bells ringing in evolutionary hindbrain patterns across multiple species. The lead human wore simple gray fatigues with minimal decoration. Graying hair, weathered face, eyes that seemed to catalog every detail of the station's defensive positions without appearing to look around at all. "General Marcus Chen," he introduced himself with a slight nod. "United Earth Defense Force." Behind him stood 4 others, a woman with intricate tattoos covering her dark arms, muscles coiled like steel cables under her skin. A pale man whose hands never stopped moving in micro-adjustments, touching equipment, checking angles. A red-haired woman whose smile looked friendly until you noticed it never reached her eyes. An older black man who radiated the kind of stillness that predators recognize in apex hunters. "I am Admiral Kess," the Vorthak rumbled, his translation device converting the subsonics into standard Galactic. "We appreciate Earth's interest in joining our conflict against the Hive Empire. However, your species lacks combat experience on the galactic scale." General Chen's expression didn't change. "That's an interesting assumption, Admiral." The tension in the room thickened like atmosphere before a storm. Captain Thorne stepped forward, his bioluminescent patches flaring with amusement. "No offense intended, General, but your people have been fighting each other on a single world. We've been conducting warfare across star systems for millennia. The Hive Empire has conquered 47 civilizations. They don't make mistakes." "Neither do we," said the tattooed woman quietly. Her accent carried hints of multiple Earth languages. "Sergeant Major Rosa Santos, 75th Rangers." The pale man spoke without looking up from a tablet he'd somehow produced. "Technical Sergeant Jake Morrison, Combat Engineers. Your station's structural integrity has 17 critical weak points. Would you like me to list them?" Admiral Kess's forearms tensed. "How could you possibly—" "Because we've spent the last hour cataloging them," interrupted the red-haired woman pleasantly. "Colonel Sarah Mackenzie, Intelligence Division. Your defensive positions are optimized for fighting other Coalition vessels using standard energy weapons. Against kinetic attacks, you'd last approximately 12 minutes. The older man finally spoke, his voice carrying decades of authority worn smooth as river stones. "Command Sergeant Major Williams, I've read your after-action reports from the Hive conflicts." He paused. "Interesting reading." "What's that supposed to mean?" Thorne demanded. General Chen looked around the assembled Coalition officers. "It means we know exactly what we're walking into. The question is, do you?" The light suddenly dimmed, emergency protocols activating. A communications officer rushed to Admiral Kess's side, whispering urgently. The Vorthak's obsidian skin somehow managed to pale. "Hive fleet detected," he announced. 12 vessels approaching fast. They'll be in weapons range in 4 hours. "Perfect timing," General Chen said calmly. "We'll take point." Captain Thorne laughed, the sound sharp and cutting. "General, with respect, your single ship against a Hive battle group? That's not courage. That's suicide." General Chen smiled for the first time since boarding the station. "It was not a pleasant expression, Captain," he said softly. "You have no idea what suicide looks like." As if summoned by his words, the Defiance began to change. Hull panels slid back, revealing weapons systems that definitely hadn't been there moments before. The ship's energy signature spiked, then disappeared entirely. "Stealth systems online," reported Morrison without emotion. "All hunter-killer packages deployed." Admiral Kess stared at the tactical display where the human ship had simply vanished. "That's impossible. No ship that size can carry effective stealth. Rules of engagement, sir?" Colonel Mackenzie asked Chen, ignoring the aliens entirely. "Standard package," Chen replied. "No survivors." "Understood, sir." "Recommendation? Let them see us first. Fear is a weapon, too." As the Coalition, officers tried to process what they just witnessed. Emergency alerts began cascading across their displays. Long-range sensors were detecting something impossible. The approaching hive fleet was slowing down. The most advanced predatory species in known space, creatures that had never shown hesitation in the face of any enemy, were hesitating. "Why are they slowing?" whispered a junior officer. Command Sergeant Major Williams looked up from his own display where streams of data painted pictures that made seasoned warriors look twice. "Because," he said quietly, "they fought humans before." The viewport filled with the distant flashes of weapon discharges as battle was joined far from the station. But something was wrong with the light patterns. Coalition weapons created sustained beams and energy pulses. What they were seeing looked like lightning storms. "What are your people firing?" Admiral Kess demanded. General Chen watched the distant battle with professional interest. "Everything." The answer hung in the air like smoke from a battlefield, carrying promises and threats in equal measure. In the growing silence, one thing became crystal clear. The Coalition had invited something onto their station that they didn't understand at all. And outside, in the black between stars, ancient nightmares were learning that lesson the hard way. Chapter 2. The First Lesson. The Hive Battle Group. Consuming darkness had conquered 47 worlds. Fleet Commander Sektar had personally overseen the destruction of 18 different species. His bioship Eternal Hunger could crack planets. Nothing had prepared him for what happened when the humans arrived. The attack began 3 hours earlier than projected. The first sign was the complete disappearance of his scout ships, not destroyed, simply gone from all sensors simultaneously. No distress signals, no debris. Just empty space where 12 hive vessels had been moments before. "Fleet Commander," hissed his communications subcast, mandibles clicking with distress. "We are receiving a transmission." The holographic display shimmered to life, showing the interior of what appeared to be a human command center. The same graying man from the intelligence briefing stood calmly before a backdrop of organized chaos. Humans moving with purposeful efficiency around incomprehensible technology. "Fleet Commander Sektar," General Chen said conversationally. "I'm General Marcus Chen, United Earth Defense Force. We need to talk." Sektar's exoskeleton rippled with predatory amusement. In 47 campaigns, not once had prey initiated communication. "You wish to surrender, mammal? How refreshing. Actually, I wanted to give you a choice. You can turn around and leave this system immediately, or you can discover why your scout ships are no longer responding." The fleet commander's bioship pulsed with bioluminescent fury. Around him, the bridge crew's pheromone signatures shifted to aggression patterns. "Impossible. Our scouts are equipped with quantum crystalline armor plating, self-repairing, biohulls, and distributed consciousness matrices." Chen interrupted. "Yes, we know. Fascinating technology. Unfortunately for you, we've learned some new tricks since your species first encountered humans." Something cold crawled up Sektar's spinal column. "You... what? Oh, didn't they tell you?" Chen's expression remained perfectly neutral. "This isn't our first meeting, Fleet Commander. The Hive encountered human forces approximately 47 years ago, near a little place called Kepler 442b. The bridge fell silent except for the organic hum of biosystems. Kepler 442b was classified in the deepest archives, A minor skirmish with an unknown species that had gone silent decades ago. The official report listed it as a successful pacification. Impossible, Sektar hissed. That colony was destroyed. Complete biological sterilization confirmed. The colony, yes, Chen agreed. The colonists? That's a different story. On cue, new contacts appeared on the hive sensors. Not ships. Individual biosignatures moving through space in environmental suits that shouldn't exist. Hundreds of them, already inside the hive formation's defensive perimeter. My boarding parties are in position, Fleet Commander. Would you like to see what 47 years of preparation looks like? Before Sektar could respond, his tactical display exploded with proximity alerts. The humans weren't just inside his defensive line. They were inside his ships. Emergency bioseals, triggered throughout the fleet as hull breaches appeared in impossible locations. How? Sektar began. Molecular disassembly charges, Chen explained helpfully. We reverse-engineered them from your bioarmor after Kepler 442b. Turns out your regenerative technology has some interesting weaknesses when exposed to recursive enzymatic cascades. The eternal hunger shuddered as something detonated deep within its biostructure. Emergency pheromones flooded the bridge as damage reports cascaded in. Impossible reports, humans fighting through compartments that should have been sealed, with biolocks keyed to hive genetic patterns. Your genetic locks are very sophisticated, Chen continued, his voice maddeningly calm as Sektar's fleet died around him. Unfortunately, we've been studying hive biology for nearly 5 decades. We know exactly which genetic markers to synthesize. A new voice cut through the comm channel, rougher, with an accent Sektar's translators couldn't place. General, we've secured the primary biocores on vessels 3 through 7, ready for extraction. Copy that, Sergeant Major. Phase 2 is authorized. Sektar watched in growing horror as his ships began to change. Biohulls that had evolved over millions of years started restructuring themselves, following command protocols that couldn't possibly exist. His own vessel's consciousness spoke to him in distress pheromones he'd never encountered. Confusion, fear, and something else. Recognition. What have you done? He whispered. We've been very busy, Fleet Commander. 47 years is a long time to study an enemy. Long enough to decode your bioship consciousness matrices. Long enough to understand how your vessels think. The display showed Technical Sergeant Morrison, still pale and focused, his hands dancing over control surfaces grown from hive biotechnology. Reprogramming complete, General. All surviving vessels are now responding to human neural interfaces. Outstanding. Sergeant Major Santos, status report. Status. The tattooed woman appeared on screen, her armor splattered with substances that definitely weren't human blood. All enemy crew neutralized or contained, sir. These things really don't like close-quarters combat. They're not used to prey that fights back effectively, observed Colonel Mackenzie. Psychological profiles suggest the hive depends heavily on intimidation and overwhelming force. When faced with equivalent or superior tactics, they suffer rapid psychological collapse. Command Sergeant Major Williams' voice carried grim satisfaction. Sir, we've secured their command structures. Extracting strategic intelligence now. General, Chen looked directly at Sektar through the display. Fleet Commander, you have approximately 30 seconds before your bridge atmosphere becomes lethal to your physiology. We've introduced some modifications to your ship's biosystems. Nothing. Fatal, we need information from you. The air around Sektar began to shimmer with chemical compounds that made his exoskeleton burn. His crew collapsed, overwhelmed by atmospheric changes their bodies couldn't process. Only he remained conscious. His fleet commander enhancements, buying him precious minutes. This is impossible, he gasped. We are the apex predators. We have conquered. You conquered civilizations that fought like civilizations, Chen corrected. Standard formations, predictable tactics, technology-dependent strategies. You've never fought a species that spent its entire evolutionary history trying to kill itself more efficiently. Through his failing vision, Sektar saw something that broke his understanding of the universe. The human soldiers moving through his ship weren't just using hive technology, they were improving it. Real-time biological modifications that surpassed millions of years of evolution. implemented by creatures who had learned to fight in environments that would kill most species instantly. "Welcome to human warfare, Fleet Commander," General Chen said quietly. "We don't just defeat our enemies. We learn from them, we become them, and then we become something better." The transmission ended. Sektar's consciousness faded as his captured bioship carried him toward an uncertain fate, while around him, the consuming darkness learned what it meant to be consumed. Back on Nexus Station, the Coalition officers stared at displays showing 12 Hive vessels now broadcasting human identification codes. The entire engagement had lasted 47 minutes. Admiral Kess found his voice first. How is this possible?" General Chen turned from the tactical display, his expression tired but satisfied. "Admiral, your people have been fighting the Hive Empire for decades, but you've been fighting them like civilized beings. The problem is..." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "The Hive Empire isn't civilized, and neither are we." Outside the viewport, the captured Hive fleet began forming up around the Defiance, bioships and human technology merging into something that had never existed before, and something that would change the balance of galactic power forever. But that was just the beginning. Chapter 3. The Deep Truth Admiral Kess had commanded fleets across 7 star systems. He had witnessed the death of worlds and the birth of new species. Nothing in his 4 centuries of existence had prepared him for what the humans revealed next. The briefing room on Nexus Station hummed with tension, thick enough to cut. Holographic displays showed the captured Hive fleet in unprecedented detail, bioships, that now responded to human commands with an eagerness that defied every understanding of Hive technology. "You need to understand something about the Hive Empire," General Chen began, his weathered hands clasped behind his back. "Everything you think you know is wrong." Captain Thorne's bioluminescent patches flickered with skepticism. "We've been fighting them for 63 years. We know their capabilities, their tactics." "You know what they wanted you to know," interrupted Colonel Mackenzie, her pleasant smile nowhere in evidence. Intelligence files materialized in the air between them, classification markers in human languages the Coalition couldn't read. "The Hive Empire isn't an empire at all, it's a recruitment program." The silence stretched until Admiral Kess broke it. "Explain." Technical Sergeant Morrison looked up from his bio-integrated control tablet, the Hive technology responding to his touch with disturbing familiarity. "The entities you call the Hive Empire are middle management. They're not the apex predators, they're the talent scouts." "For what?" whispered a junior Coalition officer. Command Sergeant Major Williams answered with the weight of decades in his voice. "For the real war." The holographic display shifted, showing star charts that extended far beyond Coalition space. Markers appeared, thousands of them, scattered across the galactic arm like drops of blood on black silk. Species designation: unknown. Mackenzie read from files that shouldn't exist. Common characteristics: aggressive expansion, technological adaptation, capacity for rapid military evolution. Current status: under evaluation. General Chen moved to the display, his finger tracing paths between the markers. Every species the Hive has conquered followed the same pattern. First contact, escalating conflict, apparent defeat, then silence, complete disappearance from galactic communications. "That's impossible," Admiral Kess rumbled. "We have survivors, refugees from dozens of worlds." "You have test subjects," Santos corrected grimly. Her tattooed arms were crossed, muscles still coiled from recent combat. "The ones they let escape, the ones carrying specific genetic markers, psychological profiles, tactical knowledge." Morrison's tablet chimed with incoming data streams. "Sir, we've finished decrypting the Hive command protocols. The intelligence confirms our worst-case scenarios." "Show them," Chen ordered. The display changed again, revealing something that made several Coalition officers step backward. A vast structure larger than planets drifting in the void between galaxies. It pulsed with energy signatures that registered as both organic and technological, familiar and utterly alien. Meet the architects, Chen said quietly. The species that built the Hive Empire as a screening tool. They've been testing galactic civilizations for approximately 2 million years. Testing for what? Captain Thorne's voice cracked slightly. Williams answered with military precision. Combat effectiveness, adaptive capacity, potential for large-scale, strategic thinking, psychological resilience under extreme stress. He paused. Essentially, they're looking for species capable of fighting in a war that spans multiple galaxies. The Coalition officers exchanged glances heavy with growing dread. Admiral Kess spoke for all of them. What war? The one that's been going on for longer than your civilizations have existed, Mackenzie replied. The architects aren't the only species that's transcended single galaxy limitations. There are others, and they're not friendly. The display shifted again, showing deep space sensor readings that had been classified beyond the reach of Coalition. Intelligence. Massive energy signatures moving through intergalactic void, structures that dwarfed star systems, technology that operated on principles unknown to current physics. The architects have been recruiting military assets for approximately 2 million years, Chen continued. Species that pass their tests get invited to join the real conflict. Species that fail get terminated. Completely. And the ones that refuse the invitation? Admiral Kess asked, though he already knew the answer. There are no refusals, Santos said flatly. By the time you're capable of refusing, you're too valuable to lose. Morrison's tablet chimed again, streams of data flowing in languages that evolved in distant galaxies. General, we're receiving communication requests from 17 different transgalactic entities. Word travels fast. How long do we have? Chen asked. Based on the response patterns from previous recruitment events? Approximately 47 hours before the testing protocols escalate, the weight of revelation settled over the briefing room like gravity from a dying star. Captain Thorne found his voice first. You're saying every species in the Coalition is being evaluated for potential recruitment into some kind of cosmic military? Not potential, Williams corrected. Active recruitment. The war we're being recruited for started before your sun formed. It's been going on so long that entire civilizations have evolved just to serve as military contractors. What makes humans different? Admiral Kess demanded. Why do you know this when we don't? General Chen exchanged glances with his team. Some communication passed between them that transcended words, the kind of understanding forged in conflicts beyond normal comprehension. Because, Chen said slowly, we've already been recruited. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the station's ambient systems seemed to pause, waiting for explanation. Kepler 442b wasn't a human colony, Mackenzie revealed. It was a testing facility. The architects have been running experiments on human populations for 73 years. We're not here to join your war against the Hive Empire. We're here to extract you before the real tests begin, Santos finished. Outside the viewport, space began to shimmer with energy discharges that operated on frequencies beyond Coalition sensor capability. Ships appeared, not through hyperspace jumps or warp translation, but simply materializing as if they had always been there. The vessels were nothing like Hive bioships or Coalition technology. They moved like living things but felt like constructions, blending organic curves with geometric impossibilities that hurt to look at directly. Architect vessels, Morrison reported calmly. 17. New contacts appearing every few seconds. Williams checked his combat display with professional interest. Sir, tactical analysis suggests we have approximately 4 minutes before they achieve optimal positioning for large-scale extraction operations. General Chen nodded once. All Coalition vessels and personnel will evacuate this system immediately. This is not a request. You can't order us to, Captain Thorne began. I'm not ordering you, Chen interrupted. I'm warning you. In 4 minutes, this system becomes a testing ground for species evaluation. Everything that happens after that point will be designed to push you beyond your normal operational parameters. Some of you will survive. Some of you won't. None of you will be the same. Admiral Kess looked at the approaching architect vessels, at the captured Hive fleet now clearly serving as forward scouts. at the humans who had just revealed they were something far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. "And you?" he asked, quietly. General Chen smiled, the same expression that had unsettled everyone when they first met. But now they understood what lay behind it. "We're going to do what humans do best, Admiral. We're going to show them something they've never seen before." The station's evacuation alarms began to sound as coalition ships powered up their escape systems. But even as they prepared to flee, everyone knew the same terrible truth. There was nowhere in the galaxy far enough to run from what was coming. And the humans? They weren't running at all. Chapter 4. The Price of Understanding, the Evacuation. Of Nexus Station took 18 minutes. A record that would have impressed military historians if any had survived to record it. As coalition vessels streamed away into hyperspace, the humans remained behind with their captured hive fleet in something that defied every law of physics the coalition understood. They weren't alone. The architect vessels had completed their deployment in perfect geometric formations that hurt to perceive directly. 17 massive constructions that moved like living things while maintaining the precise angles of mathematical abstractions. They didn't communicate in any recognizable way. Instead, space itself seemed to carry their intentions like ripples in reality. General Chen stood on the bridge of the Defiance, now biomechanically integrated with hive technology in ways that should have been impossible. His command crew moved with efficiency born of experience beyond normal human parameters. "Tactical assessment, Sergeant Major?" he asked quietly. Santos consulted displays that mixed human engineering with bioorganic interfaces. 17 primary vessels, approximate mass equivalent to small moons. Energy signatures indicate technology operating on principles we don't have names for yet. Weapons systems? She paused. "Sir, I don't think they have weapons systems. Because they don't need them," Morrison added, his hands interfacing directly with hive bioneural networks. "According to the intelligence we extracted, architect vessels don't destroy things. They modify them." Colonel Mackenzie materialized beside them. Not walked, materialized. Her form flickering slightly as advanced stealth systems struggled to maintain coherence. Psychological profiles indicate they view conflict as inefficient. They prefer conversion. "Convert what?" Williams asked, though his tone suggested he already knew. "Everything," Chen answered. "Matter, energy, consciousness, time. The architects don't fight wars in any sense we'd understand. They reshape reality until opposition becomes irrelevant." Through the viewport, one of the architect vessels began to change. Hull sections that had seemed solid flowed like liquid metal, revealing internal structures that violated basic geometry. Corridors that extended in directions human perception couldn't follow. Chambers that existed in more dimensions than space should allow. "Incoming transmission," Morrison reported. "It's not using electromagnetic radiation." "What is it using?" Santos asked. "Direct quantum manipulation of local space-time. They're not sending a message. They're temporarily modifying reality to include their communication in our existence." The bridge filled with presence that bypassed sensory organs entirely. When the architects spoke, they did so by becoming part of the listener's understanding of the universe. Species, human. Designation, anomalous. Status, under evaluation. The words weren't heard, they simply existed in everyone's mind as fundamental truths about the nature of reality. General Chen responded with the calm of someone who had done this before. "Acknowledged. We're ready for the evaluation." Curiosity. Your species demonstrates unprecedented adaptation to hive biotechnology. Explanation required. "We're fast learners," Chen replied simply. Mackenzie stepped forward, her intelligence training, allowing her to interface with concepts that existed beyond normal cognition. "Our species has developed advanced integration protocols through extensive conflict experience. We adapt enemy capabilities faster than most species can comprehend them." Assessment. Human military capability exceeds baseline parameters for galactic stage. Species. Concern, possible apex development. Williams spoke with authority earned through decades of impossible battles. What's the concern? We passed your tests. Clarification. Tests incomplete. Human performance indicates potential for strategic development beyond architect control. Evaluation. Required before recruitment completion. The space around Nexus Station began to change. Not physically, the station remained structurally intact, but the fundamental nature of local reality shifted. Gravity became optional. Time flowed in multiple directions simultaneously. The laws of physics became suggestions rather than absolutes. Phase 2, Chen murmured. Here we go. Through the modified space-time, new entities began to appear. Not ships or vessels, but presence itself given form and purpose. These were the architect's opponents, the entities they had been recruiting armies to fight for 2 million years. They were beautiful and terrible and wrong in ways that human minds could process only because humans had already seen everything their own species could do to itself. Well, Santos observed with professional calm as reality writhed around them, this is new. The entities, Coalition intelligence would later classify them as devourers, though that was a translation failure that missed their true nature, moved through modified space-time like concepts seeking physical form. They didn't attack in any conventional sense. Instead, they began to edit the existence of everything they encountered. Nexus Station started to become something else. Not destroyed, not damaged, transformed into structures that served purposes beyond human comprehension. The Hive fleet, despite its human integration, began exhibiting behaviors that transcended its original programming. Morrison, Chen called. Status on our bio-integration systems? Adapting, sir. The Hive biotechnology is responding to devourer proximity by implementing changes we didn't program. Morrison's voice carried professional fascination. It's like the bioships are remembering something they were designed for originally. Which is what? Fighting entities that exist outside normal space-time parameters. Colonel Mackenzie materialized at different points around the bridge simultaneously, an impossible feat that no one questioned. Intelligence assessment. The architects and devourers have been fighting for so long that they've evolved beyond conventional existence. They need proxy forces because direct conflict would unmake local reality, and we're the proxy forces, Williams concluded. Observation. Human adaptation continues beyond predicted parameters. Warning. Excessive development may trigger containment protocols. General Chen looked at the architect vessel, at the devourers, editing reality around them, at his crew adapting to impossible circumstances with the competence of species that had spent evolutionary ages preparing for exactly this situation. Here's what I think, he said calmly. I think you've made a mistake. Clarification. Requested. You've been testing species for 2 million years, looking for military assets capable of fighting in transgalactic conflict. You found lots of species that could follow orders, implement strategy, maintain discipline under pressure. Chen walked to the viewport, looking out at battle being fought with weapons that could rewrite the fundamental nature of existence. But you never found a species that had spent its entire existence fighting itself with increasing creativity and efficiency. You never found a species that treats impossible circumstances as standard operating procedure. The architect presence shifted, something that might have been surprise rippling through local reality. You never found a species, Chen continued, that would look at a conflict between cosmic entities and ask, how do we make this our problem to solve? What happened next would be debated by xenopsychologists for centuries, assuming any survived to debate it. The human crew of the Defiance didn't just adapt to the reality-warping effects of the architect-devourer conflict, they began to integrate them. Morrison's bio-neural interfaces started incorporating devourer reality editing principles. Santos began implementing tactical solutions that used architect geometric modifications as weapons platforms. Mackenzie's intelligence-gathering methods began operating across multiple dimensions simultaneously. Williams coordinated strategies that treated space-time manipulation as standard logistics. And General Chen? He began giving orders to entities that had existed since before the formation of galaxies. Alarm. Human integration exceeds all parameters. Immediate containment required. Too late, Chen replied, his voice carrying harmonics that operated on frequencies beyond normal physics. We're not your recruited assets. We're not your weapons. We're not your solution to your problem. Around him, his crew continued to evolve in real time, incorporating capabilities that transcended species limitations. We're your replacement. The battle for Nexus Station lasted 17 minutes and approximately 4 billion years, depending on which temporal reference frame you used for measurement. When it ended, the architects and devourers had learned something that 2 million years of cosmic conflict hadn't taught them. There are some problems that can only be solved by species insane enough to solve everyone else's problems too. The humans had work to do. Epilogue. New management. 6 months later, Coalition Standard Time. Admiral Kess returned to what had once been Nexus Station with a fleet of 23 Coalition vessels and sensors calibrated to detect reality manipulation. What they found defied not just expectations but several fundamental laws of physics. The station existed in roughly the same location, but it had been improved. The structure now extended across 7 dimensions, maintained artificial gravity in directions that didn't technically exist, and served as a hub for transportation networks that connected previously unreachable sections of the galaxy. Incoming transmission, reported his communications officer, a young Altarian whose bioluminescent crests were flickering with confusion. It's from General Chen. The holographic display activated, showing the familiar figure of the human commander. He looked unchanged, though the background behind him suggested he was standing in a location where up and down were matters of personal preference. Admiral Kess, Chen said pleasantly. Welcome back. How was the evacuation? General, Kess replied carefully. We've been monitoring long-range sensors. The readings are unusual. What happened here? We solved the problem, Chen answered, with characteristic simplicity. The Architect-Devourer conflict has been resolved. Galactic-level species testing has been discontinued. The recruitment program has been permanently suspended. Captain Thorne, present via holographic link from his vessel, leaned forward. Resolved how? We offered them a better alternative, said a new voice. Sergeant Major Santos appeared in the display, her tattoos now including patterns that seemed to shift when viewed directly. Turns out cosmic entities are just like everyone else. They respond well to superior firepower and better logistics. The architects and devourers are now operating under new management, added Colonel Mackenzie, materializing at several points in the transmission simultaneously. Human management. Admiral Kess tried to process what he was hearing. You're saying humans have assumed control of a 2-million-year-old cosmic conflict? Someone had to, replied Command Sergeant Major Williams, his voice carrying the satisfaction of a job well done. Left to their own devices, they would have kept fighting for another few million years. Very inefficient. Technical Sergeant Morrison appeared, his hands interfacing with control systems that existed in more dimensions than Coalition science could describe. We've established new operational parameters for transgalactic conflict resolution. Current project timelines suggest complete pacification of hostile entities within 18 months. 18 months for what? Kess asked weakly. The entire local galactic cluster, Chen answered. We're expanding operations to cover approximately 47 galaxies. Should have everything sorted out by next year. Through the viewports of Coalition vessels, space itself began to shift. Ships appeared, not human vessels, not hive bioships, but something new. Constructions that blended organic curves with geometric impossibilities, operated by crews that mixed human engineering with architect mathematics and devourer reality manipulation. The good news, Chen continued, is that the Coalition is welcome to continue normal operations. Trade, exploration, cultural exchange, all of that can proceed without interference. And the bad news? Captain Thorne asked, though he clearly dreaded the answer. There isn't any bad news, Santos replied cheerfully, unless you consider universal peace and prosperity to be problems. We've taken the liberty of upgrading coalition defense systems, Morrison added. Your vessels now carry reality stabilization, fields and transdimensional communication arrays, standard equipment for operating in the new galactic environment. Admiral Kess looked at the displays showing his fleet's impossible new capabilities, at the station that existed in 7 dimensions, at the humans who had somehow resolved a cosmic conflict through the simple expedient of taking charge of it. General, he said finally, what exactly are humans? Chen smiled, the same expression that had unsettled everyone 6 months ago, but which now carried different implications entirely. Admiral, he replied, we're the species that got tired of letting other people solve problems badly. Behind him, space folded into configurations that would allow instantaneous travel between galaxies, while reality editing protocols ensured that hostile entities encountered solutions rather than conflicts. The universe is under new management now, Chen concluded. We'll take good care of it. The transmission ended, leaving the coalition fleet alone with the implications of a cosmos where humans had decided to take responsibility for problems that transcended planetary concerns. In the distance, stars began arranging themselves into more efficient configurations. After all, there was work to be done,